Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to another TMDSAS office hour session. My name is Suleima, and I am the TMDSAS support coordinator. So for today's session, we're just going to have another session where we will just answer questions, be here as long as we need to be here in order to address all your questions, comments, concerns when it comes to anything regarding applying. A particular section that you're working on and you're having a tough time completing that, or anything else that you want to know about the application cycle, now is the best time to ask those questions. Typically, for those who have not been here, our Team DCS office hours are sessions that we host live every week in order to provide additional support to applicants. Oftentimes, we have guests here that will also provide some additional insight about the application process. Sometimes we'll have members from our member institutions come in and just give us more information about applying, what they're looking for, opportunities to be able to learn. And there's often we've had sessions with other collaboration from team members like those from MCAS and the Casper as well. So it's very informative. It has a lot of information depending on the topic. And sometimes, whenever we get a lot of questions about a particular topic at our office, then we will host a kind of like a presentation, short video explaining what that topic is, what the common questions are, and how to resolve those. But for now, we will just host these to allow you guys to ask any questions that you might have about, again, applying a particular section in your application that you need help with, or anything else that you'd like to address. So in the meantime, I did want to point out that we have received a lot of questions about activities in the activity section of the application. So here at Team DSCS Support, we do our best to kind of help you guys answer those questions. However, when it comes to categorizing your activity, whether it should be this one, should it be in like community service, or should it be in healthcare? Really, that is up to you. However, you want to designate that activity under the specific category that you're thinking of. And the reason for that is because you know your activities best. So you would know what you want to highlight, what you want to talk about those activities in particular. And based on that insight, kind of inform your decision on where and why to put the activity in a certain category. Um, I know that sometimes it's nerve-wracking, like not knowing where to put it, but honestly, it is up to you wherever you want to put this activity. I used an example about babysitting. And so in the past, let's say I babysat my neighbor's kids and I got money for that over the summer. So it's up to me where I want to place that activity. So I could either put it under employment because I was employed for the summer, or two, like I could talk about taking care of children between a specific age range and how that helped me kind of see, like, maybe I want to go into be a pediatrician, or maybe I want to work with a certain population. um, it can go anywhere. So really, it's up to you how you want to explore and refer to that activity in your application. And to get more insight or ideas on how to categorize those activities, we do have this resource that I will share in the chat. And feel free to ask any of your questions that you have in the chat. Just post them on there and we'll address those live. We typically host this for about an hour, depending on how many questions you receive. So don't be shy. You can enter your question in the chat. And this article basically just covers information that you need to know about meaningful activities, what is activity current versus planned, how to make that determination, the different categories that there are, um, examples of what those are by definition, and it also gives you a sample of a couple of activities that a pretend applicant has filled out and they have listed, and where they could potentially list them under the specific categories. So just to give you an idea of where those can be entered to kind of help you out. And of course, if you ever have any questions about your activities or any other topic, you can feel free to send us a message in your TMDSA's application portal. That is the best way to reach out to us because we can also take a look at your application. Any message that is sent, we do have that connected to your application, so it allows our team to have quick access to your application if needed. All right, so far we have one brave soul who asked our question. This is from William. If we have an activity that we have already started and will be ongoing through the next year, so listed as both current and planned, do we get 500 characters for both current and planned entry? I believe so. I believe it should give you the same amount of character count, but let me just double check that because I do have my test application that I can refer to. All right, my computer's a little slow, but hang in there while I take a look. All right, so it looks like for planned, we do have the 500 character count. And let me just take a look at one of the other categories. Yeah, it looks like it'll be 500 character count for all of those categories. And the thing that we recommend with ongoing activities is you'll list it once under your current activities and then have your planned to show the continuation of that activity. We typically recommend that you just change up the description so that you don't just copy and paste from the current to the planned. In the plan, you can put something like, here's what I'm hoping to gain out of this opportunity or activity. Here's what I'm planning on doing. Here's what it looks like I will be doing, or because I'm doing this in currently, and it'll allow me to do this in planned. Just something along those lines, just to show that you have a different description and you just didn't copy and paste. I think that that planned activity can provide you an additional opportunity to talk more about that activity if needed. So take advantage of that and don't just copy and paste your descriptions. But great question. We typically get this question asked every single cycle. We have a question from Cassie. I have several activities that I've spent a lot of time in, and although my role hasn't changed, the breaks between somewhere like a year apart. Would it be better to separate them or place as one entry? Let me just refer back to the guidance that we have in the application guide. We do have information about the asynchronous activities, and depending on how big the gaps, it can kind of help us inform ourselves on how to enter it into the application. Okay, so it says that your role hasn't changed and there were breaks that were a year apart. I think based on what's in the guide, the advice that's given when there is a role change, that would be an instance where you can have separate entries for that part of the activity. But if not, you can, if the breaks were short or if they were, like, say, exactly 1 year apart, for let's say you did this over the span of 5 years and each there was like a break of a year in between, it's pretty even. I think it wouldn't be too much of an issue to list it once and just kind of um, indicate that it was like a year break in between that span of time. Yeah, so because there's not a role change, I don't think that you'll necessarily have to break this down into multiple entries. If it's only been a year apart, then I think it would help to just put it as one entry and just list that it was like every other year, however you want to indicate that, since it wasn't different timeframes in between. I hope that makes sense. But if not, let me know. We can revisit this question for sure. We have a question from Sam. For activities, how do you recommend entering in the hours for an activity that occurred once a month since it asks for hours per week? I would say do your best with entering the approximate amount of hours per week. I know some activities ask you for that, and some don't. I don't remember which ones do and which ones don't, but I would say as long as your hours per week totals the total amount that you are reporting. So let's say I said I did 100, or yeah, so hours per week, however many weeks that was for, then I can just kind of split it up that way. Um, but just as long as it makes sense for that time period and it equals out to the total amount of hours that you report, I think should be fine. Okay. Another question. This was about coursework. If we made a mistake in putting our coursework after submission, will that be corrected after sending TMDCS an internal message, or will it delay the application process time? Not at all. So actually, the coursework section is something that it's a section in your application that you can always make changes to. You can always come back to, request to have it unlocked or request to make a grade change if needed. So yeah, definitely send us a message if you haven't already. That lets us know what that corrected grade letter should be, and it shouldn't delay the application processing time. Great questions, guys. And since we were talking about the after submitting, I did want to have you guys know that we do have a section in the application guide specifically referring to the next steps after submission. So, unfortunately, it doesn't all end whenever you submit your application. You're not officially done with TMDSAS. You still need to be in communication with us, because we will also have very important information that you still need to be keeping in mind as you're going through the cycle, because the cycle's not over once it hits November 1st. It continues all the way, I would say, until the next cycle, really. So you want to make sure that you're always on top of it and making sure that you're keeping up with your application, even though it's after you submit it. So let me go ahead and share that link. And this page, just to break it down for you guys so you know ahead of time what's on there, it just mentions that you, of course, need to check your messages and be up to date with what's happening with your application. Like I mentioned, it doesn't all end whenever you hit submit and that's it. That's the last you hear from us. Unfortunately, that is not. You want to make sure that you stay in the know with anything that has to do with your application, even after you submit. There might be times when we might send you important information, and you still need to be in contact with us for specific things that happen throughout the cycle. So just be on the lookout for that. Look out for those messages. Typically, you will receive an email notification letting you know that you have a message in your portal pending, waiting for you to review. So that's how you'll know that you have messages in that inbox of yours. It also talks about processing of letters, test scores, and the application itself. It gives you information about our processing times for each of those. And an important note about transcripts. For transcripts, we only need those upon request. So for dental, medical, and podiatry applicants, that request will typically come to you guys after the schools have let us know that you've been accepted. For veterinary applicants, that will happen once the schools let us know that you've been interviewed. So unless that has happened, which typically doesn't happen until later in the cycle, closer to the end of the fall semester for you guys, for most of y'all, don't worry about it. Transcripts will not be needed. It also gives you information on where to locate the status of those letters and scores and how you can keep up with that to make sure that we did in fact receive your letters and your scores on your application. There's information about prerequisite requirements, something about the PCR, which once your application has been transmitted, you will get a message in your portal that tells you to take a look at that. Basically, the PCR is the prerequisite coursework report. It shows you all the courses that have been counted towards your prerequisites per prerequisite area. So it's important to take a look at that because that will often tell you if you are deficient in any areas that you can catch on early in the cycle rather than later, once you are accepted and you're trying to enroll in your classes and your school tells you you can't because you have deficiencies. So it's best to go ahead and take a look at that as soon as you can to avoid having to delay on finding out that you have deficiencies and having to take care of those. So it gives you information about that, the types of courses that will show up on that PCR, information about secondary applications, Casper, which is something that some schools require, um, the specific changes that you can make after submitting. There are only certain sections of the application that can be changed after you submit. At the top of my head, I know that you cannot make changes to activities, essays. Those are the two sections that I know for a fact that you cannot make changes to. So definitely review those two sections before you submit. There's information about the TMDSAS match for medical applicants and additional FAQ. So all that is in that after submitting page, which is very important to review and take a look at. Now that I've done a lot of talking, I'm going to go back to the questions that we have because we have three more. Question from Chris: Are pre-dental days counted as enrichment experiences? I would say that it's up to you. I think this is what you're referring to as trying to figure out how to enter it into your activities. Yeah, sure, you can list it as such and just make sure that based on what you want to talk about, that helps you kind of determine where you want to place it into your activities. But yeah, absolutely, you can add that into there. Another question: If our college does not have prerequisite courses listed in the Team DCS, will they be added once we have submitted our application? I believe you're referring to the course listings page, and that is just a guide based on courses that have been approved as prerequisites in the past, and that information is provided from the advisors at those schools, not Team DSES. So I would say that the information that's there is what comes from the undergraduate pre-health advisors themselves. So if there's not a course listings, that's okay. Don't worry. It doesn't mean that your courses will not be approved. That just means that you will just have to rely on checking out the coursework definitions and classifications. Our team reviews your courses and in all your coursework section based on the criteria listed here. So I'll go ahead and link that. And this page for coursework definitions really gives you that breakdown of like the types of topics that need to be covered for it to be considered a prerequisite for that specific prereq area. So take a look at that. I would say if you do have a course listings page for your school, you can refer to that and code your courses with the help of that guidance. But if you do not, or if you have courses that don't show up on there, then I would say use the coursework definitions and classifications. Um, so, William, to make sure I answered your question, if your college does not have a prerequisite course listings page, then that would be something that your advisor can help us fill out and send. They can send information to TMDSAS about what courses would count as um, prerequisites, and we can work in collaboration with them. So, yeah, just have your pre-health advisor, get in contact with TMDSAS to add a course listings page. But yeah, I hope I answered your question. All right, follow up from Cassie. For the employment section, the guide says to include the employer. To clarify, do you want all the actual employer's name or will the name of the business/office be fine? I would say whatever makes sense. I think in this case, it makes sense to enter the business or office name and just be mindful of the character count. So I'm actually going to that section of the guide to check out what it says on employment. Yeah, I think employer here refers to like where you were employed. So not necessarily your manager, but I think it could be like the business or office. So that should be fine. And just make sure that it fits within the character count. But yeah, these are great questions, you guys. Since we did talk a little bit about coursework, which is another hot topic that we get a lot of questions from a lot of applicants asking about that, I did want to point you guys in the direction of where to find information on coursework, which is going to be on the coursework page in the application guide. And if you click on that link, it'll take you to the coursework page. At the top, it has quick links. So it has before you begin, select term, academic status, prefix, course area, name, transcript grade, a lot of useful information that you can just click and it'll take you directly to that section of that page to read more information about it. I know that we get a lot of questions about entering AP credit. So if you click the quick links link of entering AP credit, the page will take you directly to that section. It has everything you need to know about AP credit. It's all listed on there, how those should be entered. And underneath that green box, it'll show you a couple of the frequently asked questions that we get about AP credit. So a lot of these may be applicable to you and might be helpful to take a look at and review what the answers to those questions are to help you enter your AP credits. And the information that we have here is informed by the questions that we get from you guys via messages, phone calls. Sometimes we get emails from you guys, even though we do encourage our current applicants to send us messages in the portal only. So yeah, all of that information is informed based on the feedback that we receive from you guys, types of questions that you guys are asking, and it also helps inform the kind of office hours that we're having. So in this section or this time of the cycle in the beginning, we will mainly be hosting our Team DC's office hours just as open live Q&A to answer any of y'all's questions. And as we get in the middle and the end of the cycle, that we would be bringing in guests and having them speak on different events or different things that are happening throughout the cycle, such as interviews, match, ranking for those that are medical applicants, and anything else that any of our other applicants must know. Office hours is a great place where you can find those resources and hear and learn a lot of information. So definitely stick around with us for every week. This time, Tuesday at 1 p.m. Central Time. All right, and I think that's it from me. That's all that I know we get questions about. It's mainly about activities, it's mainly about coursework, specifically about entering AP credit. And I know this is a very long page, but it does have all the information that you need to know. And if you ever have any questions about where to locate anything, you can always send us a message and we can have a link sent your way so you can take a look at that information. And I did want to point out that another resource that we have, just going back to the activities, we had school panels with our member institutions 2 weeks ago, and they have great insight, great information that I think would be to you guys' benefit to review as you're filling out your activity sections. Most of what they cover was entering activities, how to categorize them, what they want to see, what those descriptions should be, information about essays, some information about coursework. So I highly, highly recommend that y'all take a look at that if y'all haven't already. And y'all can find that at the top of our TXHES YouTube channel. It'll be on our homepage. Right there, there are two from the medical schools, as we have a lot of medical schools as part of Team DSES, and we have one of the panels from the dental schools. So stay tuned for those veterinary and podiatry panels coming up shortly. A question we have from Chris is if I have been working for years as a dental assistant, can I use that in the employment and dental experience sections? Because it says do not duplicate these experiences elsewhere in your application. Great question. So the dental experience is a new section, a new category for the cycle. As it pertains for dental applicants, yes, you can list that dental experience in that category and also in employment if it falls for both. If it's both employment and your dental experience. So yes, you can duplicate that. But again, just make sure that you don't copy and paste those descriptions. Make sure that they're different. One talks about the employment, where it's listed as employment, and then the other one is specific to the dental experience that you had. A question about re-applicants. If you are a re-applicant, is it bad to use the same meaningful activities, or is that okay? I don't think that would negatively affect you. If those are your meaningful experiences, then that's what it is. And so I think it should be fine if you keep those on there. The important thing to know as a reapplicant is one particular section in the application that's super important that you truly fill this out and indicate any differences that have occurred over time with your application. It's going to be located in application history. There will be a prompt that says, what have you done to improve your application or something along those lines. So just make sure that you fill that out. That would, I would say that helps the schools know and understand the change that went through in between the last time you applied and this new time that you're applying. So yeah, I don't think it would be bad if you have the same meaningful experiences listed, but just know that in the reapplicant section, you can make note of the changes that have occurred, and that would be a great spot to list that. Question from Catherine. If we check mark the special program, example MD, PhD for a school, are we still considered for acceptance to the regular MD program for the same school? Yes. So anything that you check on, because it has a list of all the schools, like let's say, for example, medical, you click on the medical, and then it pops up with an additional MD, PhD, dual degree option. If you check mark both, then that means you're applying to the regular MD program and the dual degree. So yes, you are considered for both the MD regular program as well as the dual degree that you have selected. And yeah, George, no problem. Yeah, it's important specifically for reapplicants because I think that's the place where you guys would truly shine is to talk about what has happened, what have you guys been working on, and really improving on to make sure that you submit the best application possible. I think that's the best way to reflect on what you've done and put that in there. And that's something that the schools will be paying attention to see what is different between the last application and this new one. So yeah, take advantage of that. Again, I think it's a great opportunity to really shine and show that you are actively working on improving on yourself, on your application. And I think that that helps you stand out as an applicant as well. All right, guys. Yeah, no problem. Thanks for everyone's participation and sharing y'all's questions. I'm sure if you have a question, someone else has a question. So you are answering a lot of people's um, uh, and answering a lot of people's questions at this point. All right, let's see. Question from Cassie. Is it binding if we select or exhibit interest in any dual degree programs? I don't believe it's binding. And again, you can always make changes to this section. This is one of the sections in the application that you can make changes to. So if you apply to a dual degree program and then you later decide, actually, this is not for me, I don't want to move forward with that, you can send us a message and let us know, hey, can I please have this dual degree program removed? Or if you decide to only apply to MD programs and then you decide, wait, there's a dual degree program that I'm really interested in, then you can always request to have it added on your application. So you can make that change. So no, I wouldn't say that it's binding. You can always make changes to that selection if needed. I will say that whenever you submit your application, if you do select the dual degree program, then in the essay section, it'll prompt you with a new prompt that is specific to that dual degree program. I know we have a list of like all those prompts, so let me just go through that really quick. Examples of those prompts can be found in we have an article that has the 9 items, or it's a checklist. It's basically 9 things that you need to know to prepare for the cycle. Among that, it has all the essay prompts that are going to be asked of you in the application. It'll also include the ones that can um, generate based on your selection of dual degree. So depending on the dual degree program that you select, it might generate a new essay prompt that you would also need to fill out. So that's the only thing to be mindful is that if you do apply to a dual degree and then you submit your application, during that time, it'll ask you to fill out another essay. So just be mindful of that. All right. So it looks like we are 31 minutes in, 30 minutes in for this session. So let us know if you have any additional questions. Again, we're here and as long as we need to for you guys to answer questions up to 1 hour. So we want to be mindful of everyone's time. If you cannot stay for the whole entirety of the session, you can always refer back to this office hour and the one that we hosted last week on the YouTube channel page. It has all our past streams on there, so you can go back and rewatch these at any time. Question from William: can we include links to web pages/videos in our descriptions if they can help clarify the activity/recognition? If it fits, I say why not? You can do that. I believe I do remember this question being asked in the school panels. I don't remember if it was dental or medical, but definitely I know that schools do answer this. And I think it aligns with if it fits, then yes, you can add it in there. But just to make sure, you can always check those school panels just to be sure. Again, they give a lot of guidance about activities, how to enter those, what they're looking for, how to stand out. Just great, great, great information. And it all comes from the admissions staff from those schools. So it's coming from the people that you need to hear from. But thank you for asking your question. Yeah, we get this question a lot for specifically for research because that section the character count. I believe it's 500, but you always want to make sure that you put in your citations, cite your hard work that you've worked on. So I get it. We get this question a lot. All right, well, it looks like we don't have any other questions. Again, thank you all for joining and asking these questions. Great questions, by the way. We will have another office hour. I believe this would be on June. We're already there. We're already in June, guys. The next one would be on June 6th, since next week is Memorial Day weekend. And our Tuesdays typically look like a Monday. So we'll see you guys on June 6th. Remember to bring your questions. We'll post reminders on our social media as well. So stay tuned. Um, all right, sorry, I saw one more question. So I'll answer this last question and then I'll let you guys go. This question is from Cassie. As of now, we are only planning to use Team DCS for schools, but then later on, possibly choose to apply to one in MCAS. I guess, will we be able to update that question that asks about MCAS? The answer is no. So this particular section of that select schools page cannot be changed after you submit. So if you think that you will be applying through MCAS or any other application services like ICOMAS, then you can go ahead and select that now. And if plans change, that's fine. One, we can't make that change after you submit. So whatever you indicate that, yes or no, stays as it is. But that's fine because the schools do know that sometimes plans do change and sometimes you do end up applying, sometimes you don't. So if you right now you're set on wanting to apply, I would just go ahead and select yes. And I don't think that section necessarily hurts you in any way. I think it's just a way for the schools to kind of get an idea of what your application journey looks like right now for the cycle. Like, where else are you planning to apply? Are you considering other schools outside of the state, possibly out of country? It's just giving them additional like insight. All right, and that was our last question, as promised. So thank you all for tuning in. I appreciate you guys all the engagement and asking those questions. Again, our next office hour will be Tuesday, June 6th at 1 p.m. Central Time. If y'all have any other ideas for when these can be hosted, just let us know. Send us a message in your portal. We would love to hear from you guys and love to host these when most of y'all can attend or be able to participate in. So thank you guys so much for your time, and I wish y'all the best of luck with y'all's application and then the cycle. Have a good one. Bye, everyone.